Uh, I indicated that having had an experience with John Lewis, we were in jail together, and he called to my attention that peaceful protest involves, of course, getting in the way, is the way he put it. You have to be disruptive, but you also have to be prepared to suffer the consequences for the actions that you take. And I remember that, and I've always stood by this. If you're going to do it, you've got to be prepared to deal with the consequences. The consequences were such that I was to come to the well of the House and have the resolution that would censure me read while I'm standing in the well. Well, while I was standing there, I was overcome by what happened in the 60s. I was a child of the 60s and Dr. King and the movement. And one of the songs that we would sing when we were having some turbulent times was, "We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome." So I started to sing. Now, that singing was an act of incivility. And you have to quiz, why would you create an act of incivility at this moment in time? Here's my response. The President of the United States of America, when he was addressing a joint session of Congress, the president called Democrats lunatics. That is an act of incivility. He will not be reprimanded. He will not be censured. In fact, it is not even newsworthy now, given the incivility that he's perpetrated. So that act of incivility that he imposed upon my colleagues, and they behaved with extreme civility. I then responded today with an act of incivility. My act of incivility was in response to his incivility. His, however, was to demean. My incivility was related to trying to save lives because of what happened, what may happen with Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. More specifically, however, Medicaid. Medicaid has to be protected. And I'm going to stand up for my constituents because it's the only insurance they have. I have the best insurance in the world. There's a physician waiting to attend me right now if something happens. They don't have this benefit. I wish I could accord them this. But the one thing I assure you I'm going to do is fight to make sure that they keep what they do have. That Medicaid is important. It saves lives. Here is the message that I gave my colleagues before the vote, and I still stand by what I said. I told colleagues who were quizzing me, vote your conscience. I voted present so as not to give colleagues reason to vote one way or another. I voted present, and I said to all of them, vote your conscience. And I assumed that they did, and I respect what they do. I have no animus toward them, nor do I have any animus toward the speaker for having me removed from the chamber. He noticed me more than once. I heard him each time. I continued. The officers came over, escorted me out. They were very kind to me. As we walked out, they said kind things. I have no animus toward them. I have no ill feelings toward any of these folk. This is really about Medicaid and protecting Medicaid. As much as people would like to think that it's about Al Green, that would be a distraction. It's about Medicaid. We've got to make sure that people have health care in the richest country in the world. We cannot allow health care to become wealth care, not in this country. Well, I'm a son of the segregated South. The laws that were recognized in the Constitution for me, my friends and neighbors denied me access to those laws. I had to sit in the back of the bus. I had to sit in the balcony of the movie. I had to drink from colored water fountains. I had relatives who committed crimes and they were locked up in the bottom of the jail. We were segregated in every space. We were buried in separate cemeteries, separated in every space. I know what invidious discrimination looks like. The Klan burned a cross in my yard. I know what it sounds like. I was called horrible names. I know what it smells like. I had to go into filthy waiting rooms and filthy places to get my food where other people would come into the front and get their food. So I know invidious discrimination. I also know, and now have come to appreciate, that it is something that has not evaporated. It is not dissipated. It is still with us, and it is in the House of Representatives. This invidious discrimination seems to transcend boundaries that we think are barriers, but not the case. So I quite frankly am not as alarmed as many are, because I've lived this. I have experienced what other people are witnessing. And having experienced it, I now understand that it's good to have this transparency so that other people can see what others are experiencing. The question is, will I continue to raise my voice as I have within the recent past, and that none of my privileges have been removed? Let's start with the removal of privileges. There is an indication that I have colleagues who are currently considering removing me from my committee. I sit on financial services under the leadership of the Honorable Maxine Waters. I have been the chair of oversight, a subcommittee of the Financial Services Full Committee. And I hope to continue to work with her. She's been a great leader. I have great respect for her and all of my colleagues. But I'm told that people are considering my removal. If they are successful with my removal, I can but say this: it will give me more time to work on my articles of impeachment. With reference to the grounds, I think that I will reveal them at the appropriate time, meaning when they are presented. And with reference to the timetable, we have a song in my church that speaks to this timeline. And the song has the words, soon and very soon, soon and very soon, we shall see the articles of impeachment. There are just millions of people in general. The question was, how do these programs, Medicaid and Medicare, impact persons of African ancestry? And that I was vocal about this at the joint session of Congress, which is what caused me to be evicted from the chamber. Well, the programs are vital for many people. This is their health care, and this cuts across lines. I wouldn't want to focus on Black people. I want to focus on all people when it comes to health care. And I assure you that the state of Texas is not a good place for us to receive dollars from the federal government in a block grant, which is what I'm told my Republican colleagues may do. Rather than continue to manage it from the federal level to the extent that we do, just send a certain amount of money to Texas and say, use this for your Medicaid. This is not a good thing for us in Texas, or for people who will be in need of medical attention, Medicaid more specifically in Texas. And here's why. Texas was accorded $100 billion for Medicaid. I did not say million, $100 billion. And Texas rejected the money because after 10 years, Texas would have to pay 10% into the Medicaid coffer, and the federal government would put in 90%. Texas refused to take $100 billion to help poor people with health care. This was a part of the Affordable Care Act. I don't want to see money sent to Texas. Texas is a bad actor. Look, I'm a Texan. I love my state. But some of the people who manage the coffer, manage the money that we're sending from the federal government, they don't handle these emoluments well. And as a result, I want to make sure that we protect Medicaid and that the federal government still has a significant hand in the administration of the program. So I'm protecting it. That's what my indication to the president was all about. I never called the president any ugly names. I never threatened the president in any way. I never spoke ill of him in the sense of he was with a pejorative as he did with Senator Warren. I never used any pejoratives. I simply said, you don't have a mandate to cut Medicaid. And I wanted him to know this. And in so doing, I hope we put a spotlight on Medicaid so that people will check to see, and then that will put my colleagues across the aisle in check. This will check them so that they will say, Al Green had that outburst and he was talking about Medicaid. Now, if we cut it, we're going to prove Al Green to be right. And that's the last thing we want, is to have Al Green appear to have been right on Medicaid. So let's not cut Medicaid. I hope that's what happens. I'm not sure that it will. They are very bold, they are very audacious, and they are looking for ways to line the pockets of people who have pockets that are lined with money. They're looking for ways to do this. Well, this is not, how do I plan to address constituents who have different opinions about my recent actions? I have learned that I won't get everybody to agree with me. And I would hope that you might consider what I'm about to say. You just can't expect everybody to agree with you. But that doesn't mean that you have to cease to engage in persons with a degree of collegiality. You continue the collegiality, continue to work with people, but you can't expect everybody to agree with you. And even sometimes you can't expect the majority to agree with you, even though it's a righteous cause. Dr. King reminds us that there are times when one must do that which is neither safe, nor politic, nor popular, but you do it because it's right. So if you follow that line of logic, there will be times when you may have to stand alone, which is what I do from time to time. But I say this, on some issues, Medicaid is one of them. On some issues, it is better to stand alone than not stand at all. With reference to DEI and the president's desire to eliminate DEI, he's not alone. There are throngs of people, many of whom have been elected to Congress and have this desire to eliminate DEI. These are, a good many of them, the same people who would have us believe that slavery was involuntary relocation. These are the same people who would have us believe that Black Lives Matter is a pejorative. To say that Black Lives Matter is a pejorative. I have lived my life dealing with these kinds of issues. I remember when Black Power was first initiated, the phrase Black Power, and I think it was John Carlos who was at the '68 Olympics and raised his fist along with another person at this podium. And they were giving the Black Power symbol. This was frowned upon. People, why would Black people say Black Power? This is something that I have grown up with and I understand how to deal with. You don't deal with it by deciding that you're going to abandon that which you know to be the right thing, and more importantly, the righteous thing to do. You just have to stay with what you know to be right. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say Black Lives Matter in public forums. I do it. I'm going to say to people that DEI is not about giving anybody any advantage. It is simply about giving people opportunities to be in the mix when decisions are made about who will be engaged. That's all it is. Nobody's guaranteed anything. Heretofore, prior to this time, people have been locked out. They weren't there, so you couldn't select anybody if you didn't have a person available to be selected. So that's what that's all about. And I'm also going to let people know that I'm not afraid to stay with the language as it is, and I'm not going to allow people to redefine words that I currently know the definition of. We cannot let people redefine these words. We cannot have people redefine words that would cause people to understand that I understand the society that I live in, that I'm woke. I understand the justice system and I want justice. Being woke simply means you are sensitive to the social justices and injustices that occur. So I'm woke. You're not going to back me off of being woke because you want to redefine the word. So all of these definitions that they employ, I reject, and I continue to do that which I believe is appropriate. So I'm woke, Black Lives Matter, I believe in DEI, and I'm going to stand for people who can't stand for themselves. First, do not allow people to convince you that being woke is being wrong. Woke is right. Don't allow people to push you off of this position. That's the first thing. We have to do this. And the next thing is be prepared now to respond to the incivility emanating from the highest office in the land, the presidency, with a certain amount of incivility. His incivility is for an ignoble cause. He uses pejoratives to refer to people, and he does things that are harmful. We have to stand in the way, as John Lewis put it, and our incivility will be to protect Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, jobs, the integrity of people, mass firings without due process. We stand against that. People have to have due process. And mass firings, it's unbelievable. So we have to take a stand. And in so doing, here is an acid test that you might utilize to ascertain whether or not what you're doing is righteous. Here's the acid test. Just ask yourself, if Barack Hussein Obama behaved as Donald John Trump, would he still be president? If he did exactly what this president is doing, would he be impeached? Republicans would impeach him. Some Democrats would join in. I would be one of them. I wouldn't suffer this because the president happens to be a person of color. Anyone who behaves as this president behaves does not merit having the title of president next to his name. Well, as a person who doesn't drink, smoke, dip, chew, I tend to mind my own business. But, they see me in this black shirt today, and I'm on the floor of the House of Representatives. Perhaps my appearance with a ponytail and black shirt and a We the People necktie, maybe this says this guy's gangster. Gangsters have worn black shirts. But they're wrong. I wore the black shirt because what they were doing today is something akin to the atmosphere that you experience when you're at maybe a funeral. We wear black for funerals. So black is a way of expressing our sorrow and regrets. And I regret that the House took the steps that it took today. This is why I've never worn a black shirt on the floor of the House before. It's the first time ever. But I wore it today because of the censure that was going to take place. And this was my way of expressing my sorrow for what they were attempting to do, knowing that they were doing it because they thought that Al Green should have been more respectful. At a time when the President of the United States called members of Congress lunatics. He's not going to be punished. I was. I accepted my punishment, but I can do so and express myself in a gangster fashion.